Welcome aboard. Today we're going for a walkabout on the absolutely massive flight deck of the United States ship George Washington, aka CVN-73, or the Spirit of Freedom. This flight deck is over 4.5 acres of sovereign U.S. territory, capable of being deployed nearly anywhere in the world at a moment's notice. The flight deck that you're about to see is nearly 1,100 feet long and 252 feet wide, and when fully loaded, displaces over 100,000 tons of American diplomacy. Whoa. As you look around, you might notice that the flight deck today is nearly empty, and that's because CQ, or carrier qualification, starts tomorrow. The ship just left Norfolk and is headed southbound along the eastern coast of the United States to a whiskey area just off the shore of Jacksonville, Florida. Starting tomorrow, we'll be launching and recovering jets for the next 2 or 3 days in order to qualify Training Air Wing 1 and 2 student naval aviators in T-45 day CQ. This flight deck is big, but today it looks even bigger without any airplanes on the roof. So we have a rare opportunity to see the flight deck as normally only ship's company would be able to see it, alone and unafraid. So let's take a walk, and I'll show you the flight deck like you haven't seen it before. And I'll point out some of the things on the flight deck that almost nobody gets to see. I'll even throw in some live action clips showing you some of the parts of the ship in action. And I'll take you to my absolute favorite place on the flight deck, the fantail. There's no doubt in my mind that you'll like it too. Without further ado, let's get to it. Cheers. Welcome to Growler Jams. Alright, we're walking down the nose gear launch track for Catapult 1, which is the starboard side bow catapult. Catapults are the primary system used to launch aircraft off the carrier. The catapult can accelerate aircraft from 0 airspeed to 150 knots in just about 2 seconds. Each carrier is equipped with 4 catapults, numbered 1 through 4 from the starboard side to the port side. Catapults 1 and 2, which you see here, referred to as the bow cats because they're located on the bow of the ship, whereas cats 3 and 4 are referred to as waist cats because they're located on the angle or the waist. Nimitz-class carriers like this one use a traditional steam catapult, while Ford-class carriers are equipped with the newer EMALS, or electromagnetic aircraft launch system. During day operations, when aircraft are being launched from multiple catapults, clearing turns are required to deconflict departures. When launching from the waist cats, aircraft will execute a clearing turn to the left, whereas aircraft departing from the bow will do a clearing turn to the right. As we walk towards the bow, you can see the ship's coaming, which is the white painted rail on the deck edge that prevents aircraft moving at slow speed, deck crew, and equipment from going overboard. See the big 7-3 painted on the bow of the ship. And you'll notice the shuttles for catapults 1 and 2 are in the full forward position. I'm going to take a few more steps, then pan to the left and give you a good shot of what that shuttle looks like. There it is. And that's what the launch bar of the jet hooks up to, and it ultimately pulls the launch bar and the nose gear of the aircraft forward all the way to the end, and then the aircraft goes flying. This is what it looks like when the pilot sets the launch bar in the shuttle. On the port side of the bow, just beyond the coaming, you can see another catwalk. Those black hoses are what the grapes use to refuel aircraft that are parked nearby on the flight deck. And this catwalk has a few hatches that go below the deck to the O3 level and is used as a storage area for other support equipment like those yellow chocks that you see in the center of the screen. There's a sailor, how you doing? Taking a little break, having a moment, no big deal. And that ramp is one of a few places on the flight deck where we can push or roll things off the flight deck in the case of an emergency. This catwalk runs about 200 feet on the port side of the bow and goes all the way to the angle on the flight deck. Now as you approach the angle of the ship, you notice there's no coaming on the angle, and that's because anywhere where an aircraft is supposed to fly on or fly off the flight deck, it doesn't really make sense to have a ledge. Instead, you can see that there's a net a couple feet below the flight deck, elongated by steel poles that's capable of catching anything, including equipment and people, God forbid, that happen to blow overboard. Now we'll turn towards the port side of the ship. There's the white and red foul line for the LA or landing area. And that stripe that you see right about my shadow is the center line for the LA. There's Catapult 3, which is the inboard or starboard side waist catapult. And there's the shuttle. Notice how the business end of the shuttle is concave, so that the cylindrical portion of the launch bar can go up and over the shuttle, so the shuttle can hook it, ready for launch. And there's Catapult 4, which is the port side waist cat. And again, you can see the shuttle in the full forward position. Now we're making our way over towards the deck edge and the waist, and you notice that there's no coaming or rail alongside the waist. There's just a scupper, which is that little rain gutter ledge that you see along the edge, and the last ditch net over the side. Be careful, don't fall off. As we look towards the tower, you can see the flight deck is covered in a coarse material, and that material is called non-skid, and it's sprayed on every couple of years, and it just stops people, parts, and airplanes from sliding around on the flight deck. You can also see those circles on the flight deck with what looks like stars in the center, and those are what we call pad eyes, and they're just tie-down points for aircraft and equipment on the flight deck. Now we're just working our way down the port side of the ship towards the IFLOLS, or the improved Fresnel or Fresnel lens for the Frenchies. We'll get a good look at it. The IFLOLS is a visual landing aid that displays glide path information to a fixed-wing pilot approaching the flight deck. And you can see just in front of the lens is a station known as the bubble for the ICCS, or Integrated Catapult Control Station, where the shooters can launch aircraft from the flight deck. There are only 2 of these bubbles on the flight deck. This one here controls the waist catapults, whereas the bubble that pops up on the flight deck between catapults 1 and 2 controls the catapults on the bow. Now we'll make our way around Cat 4 and the forklift where the sailors are working to check out the JBD, or Jet Blast Deflector, for Catapult 3. JBDs prevent damage from high-energy jet exhaust during catapult launches, and each catapult has its own Jet Blast Deflector. Each Jet Blast Deflector is located at the rear of the catapult, and when not in use, like you see here, the JBD is recessed and flush with the flight deck. When an aircraft is on the catapult and ready for launch, the JBD can be raised using several hydraulic cylinders. And when raised, the hot exhaust from the launching aircraft will be directed upward, allowing other aircraft and personnel to be behind the JBD. Signature move. Now, as we work our way aft down the LA, you can see the ship's arresting gear, which is the heart of carrier operations. The arresting gear is a mechanical system that allows aircraft traveling at 150 knots to stop at only 320 feet. The Mark 7 Mod 3 arresting gear system that equips all U.S. carriers is composed of the cross-deck pennants, which you see up top with the cables stretched across the flight deck. There's also the purchase cables, which are below the flight deck, and the arresting gear engine. There's a good look at the 2-wire as we step over it. Now we're working our way down towards the 1-wire, or what we call the ace, which you can see is not rigged today. Now as we continue to walk aft towards the fantail, our next stop will be the LSO, or paddles platform, on the port side. There's the LSO platform, but you can see that the LSO base console isn't set up, because right now we're not catching any jets. And here's what it looks like when the LSO base console is set up. And here's paddles, catching what we call a cod, or a C2 Greyhound, earlier in the day. Nice. One thing that's kind of interesting that a lot of people don't see is this big black cushion pit on the side of the LSO platform. And that's for the LSOs to jump into should an emergency situation arise where they need to get off the flight deck but don't want to jump in the water. Now we're working our way down the port side of the ship, going aft towards the fantail. And we can start to break out the wake, the back of the ship. You can see Mom steaming with over 25 knots of wind over the bow. Now as we continue to walk aft towards the fantail on the ship, you'll see a big white stripe painted on the back of the boat, and that's what we call the round down. The white of the round down is highly visible to pilots in the landing pattern, and we use that as a checkpoint for when to start our beam turn in the landing pattern. Little power, little pause, little turn. There's a good look at the LA, or landing area. Nothing or no one around for miles. Wow. Kind of a neat feeling. All right, now we're working our way down the aft end of the ship on the very front of the LA, or landing area. There's a stripe for centerline on the landing area, and there's a good look all the way down the angle. Now we'll work our way to the starboard side of the ship. Here we can get a good look at the RAM, or the Rolling Airframe Missile Launcher, which is one of the carrier's many ship defense systems. You can see the foul line for the LA on the left side of the screen. As we continue to walk forward on the ship, through an area on the flight deck called the patio. In just a sec, you'll be able to see Elevator 3, which is one of the 4 giant elevators on the aircraft carrier flight deck. This particular elevator has a Seahawk helicopter on it with its tail folded, and you can see the elevator starts just on the other side of that yellow and red foul line. It's massive. Each of these high-speed hydraulic elevators can accommodate over 150,000 pounds and is large enough to hold 2 fully loaded jet aircraft. And now we're making our way forward towards the tower, or what we call the island in the aircraft carrier, through an area of the flight deck that we call the junkyard. In the junkyard, we keep a lot of support equipment like tractors, jennies, fuel hoses. There's Tilly, the big white crane on the ship. One more look at the resting gear. You can see a couple firefighting tractors right there, and 2 more Seahawk helicopters with their tails folded, just on the other side of the foul line. There's a weapons elevator right in front of the island, and there's a good look at the radars and the superstructure in the tower. Let's take one last look at this massive flight deck. All right, now we're going to work our way around the island to go back down the ladder well that we came in from. There's a couple tow bars, different lengths are for different type of aircraft. There's elevator 2 just on the other side of that yellow and red foul line. Another one of the ship's massive elevators. And we'll sneak one last look at the setting sun before we retire below deck. Now we'll step over the black fuel hoses. What's up, guys? And you can see the big 7-3 on the side of the island. It looks great all lit up at night. America. All right, down the ladder well. Onto the catwalk. And down one more ladder well. And through the hatch. This will take us to the O3 level, which is the main level just below the flight deck. Close the hatch. And through the air conditioner barrier door. Excuse me. Well, guys, if you enjoyed the jam today, please like, leave a comment, subscribe. And let me know what you think about the tour of the flight deck from the United States ship, George Washington. Cheers. Welcome to Growler Jams.